So let's quickly go straight to the first topic for discussion, where the Judicial Panel of Inquiry and Restitution on Lekki Gate shooting incidents and cases of police brutality as well as human rights violations on Monday presented a report to the Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu for further action. The panel, led by retired Judge Doris Okuobi, submitted a report at the Governor's office in Alausa, Ikeja. On October 20, the Nigerian Army shot at the people protesting police brutality at the Lekki tollgate, but have continuously denied it involvement in the incident, despite several accounts of witnesses, including hospitals where victims were taken to, showing that there were casualties. The report was submitted on 1 month after the panel concluded its year-long sittings to investigate and award compensations to victims of police brutality. So let's start with what a good job this panel have done. I mean, they just completely shattered the expected, let me use that, because of the antecedents. When this panel was formed, it was greeted with lots of skepticism and like, okay, when same old same. When it started quite slowly, because people were still trying to see and observe just how genuine these people are. But what an unexpected turn of event.
Well, let me quickly say that this wouldn't be the first time that we'll be seeing a panel in Nigeria coming up with a report that might not be too tasteful, so to say, to the government that set this up. The Oputa panel, to the best of my knowledge, tried to do a very beautiful job and came up with very revealing report, which if the government of the day had taken the time to implement, the nation would have moved a lot forward. I also remember that the Justice Kayode show on the corruption in the judiciary, they went in there and did a very, very thorough job, indicted a lot of judges, judicial officials, and what have you. So that Honorable Justice Okuobi is coming up with this report. It wouldn't be the first time. It shouldn't be surprising. I think she's on a good foundation and following the precedent of some of the people.
Where the surprise is coming from, where the surprise is coming from is Lagos was the center.
Yes, absolutely.
Of the whole thing.
Exactly.
I mean, we had other reports in other states. Other states have set up their panel, but all eyes were on Lagos.
Yes.
There was a lot of pressure. There was even a lot of political undertone too.
I agree with you.
So one would expect the panel to pad it a little.
Yeah, I was going to come to that in the sense that when you look at even the composition of that panel, except Oduala, the lady that was representing the youth, most of the people that you find on that panel were appointees of the government one way or the other. And the tradition in this country is that when the government put you on a panel or put you in a place, you are there to dance to the tune of the government and come out with a report that is likely to be palatable to the person that appointed to. A kind of he who pays the piper dictates it. And that you also want to be appointed to some future panels for whatever it might be worth, for whatever pecuniary benefits that might be coming over. But contrary to that expectation, and I think this is why this panel should be commended, despite the fact that most of the panelists were appointed by doctors, they still had the quality and integrity to say, look, these are the things that we have found. Contrary to what is being said in the media, what the government has owned up to and all that, what the soldiers and police and the police are saying and all that, we have been able to establish that there was killings at the Lekki toll gate on the 20th of
expressly called it
exactly.
Which was one word we couldn't use for
They said a massacre in
a
context and all that. So they were able to establish that. I am sure the government will not be happy getting that kind of. Furthermore, they also said something that which I consider to be outstanding. That it was actually the governor of Lagos, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, who set up the panel that actually invited the army to intervene in the Lekki, which led to the to the shooting. For me, that is a ringing indictment on the men who actually set up the panel. And hardly would you find a panel that is set up by the same person being indicted by that kind of a person. You also see that a lot of obstacles were put on the part of the panel, such that with the little that they are really able to do, we should be able to commend them. Why do I say this? The first place they were given to do the sitting and order was in an inhospitable environment. Until the people protested and said, look, you have given us a job to do. You should also give us the wherewithal to be put us in a little better environment. And then they took them to the Lagos Arbitration Court, where they now began to see. You also need some paraphernalia of things like computer, reporters, recorders, and what have you. It also took some time before some of those things were actually provided for the panel.
Some of the personnel that were invited and refused to show up.
Exactly. Furthermore, getting evidence in that kind of a panel is a very, very difficult one, because those who are custodians of the country, of the evidence are not like the pathologists, the ambulance drivers, the nurses, the soldiers and other. All of them are government workers. These are civil servants who could not have gone to that panel and make the necessary information available to that panel. So the panel had to go make extra effort, go behind and dig into the whole processes to be able to come up with some of the findings that they came up with. So when people come up and say, look, they didn't do a thorough job, there is a typographical error in there and all that, they are not reflecting on the obstacle that these people actually have to look at. The way the pathologist was talking when he appeared before that panel. He was speaking tongue-in-cheek from both sides of his mouth. He couldn't come out straight. How many people were brought to the hospital? How many of them did you examine that have a bullet wounds and what have you? What also stopped the pathology from presenting pictorial evidence of the people that were brought in there that he actually examined, who had gunshots in them, in the pathology that he did? All those things were hidden, were not given to the. And look at General Taiwo for that matter. He reduced the whole thing to a theater. He brought a PowerPoint and then projectors and all that. Human lives were reduced to mere theater. When we were talking about very serious matter of youth being dismally killed or shot at while demonstrating in a very, very peaceful manner. And most times too, you find out people have again shifted the goalposts as regards to this panel report. They are now saying it is not this, it is massacre. No, that is not true. The children or the youth who demonstrate in Lekki or in the other places in Lagos never made use of the word massacre. I remember what the DJ and some of the people who were at the scene, who were broadcasting that in live, said, look, we were sitting down, singing the national anthem and carrying the national flag, and these people are shooting at us, who are defenseless. It was the Nigerian press that came up with the word massacre.
Which was the right word, actually.
Yeah, exactly. But the people who are now indicting the panelists, who are now saying they did the rubbish war, they shouldn't have used the word, or if only one person died in there, that shouldn't be tantamount to a massacre.
Well, and it wasn't just one person.
Exactly. And the panel made use of one thing, that if you have a crowd of 20,000 people sitting down in a place, and you indiscriminately fire into that, even if the bullet hits just one person, they stampede. Yes. And then the intention, the menswear.
Yes, more casualties.
Exactly, more casualties. So, for me, I think it's a positive revolt. I think it is a very, very courageous one. I think the people who sat on that panel are commendable. Even though, since their report came out, one or two of the panelists who ordinarily should have comported themselves in an ethical manner have not done so, in terms of the responses and the press statement that they have been making. When you are in that kind of a panel and then the report has been submitted, you wait on your principal whom you have submitted the report to come out with his findings, and if it's finding or whatever he come out with in terms of the white paper doesn't tally with what your recommendations have been or your finding, that is when you now can begin to go to town. But some people here, an exercise of self-congratulation, have gone out and started blowing their own trumpet, talking about their integrity and what have you. Some other persons who are representing the government in there are now doing advocacy for the government on even a report that the government itself has not even commented on. So all these things I find very, very unethical on the part of some of these people.
Let's not play down let's not play down, you know, in addition to some of the things you mentioned, let's not play down the administration we are right now, where there's a lot of fear, especially we've sat down to talk about how the judiciary has been relegated to the background. Meanwhile, they were supposed to be at par with the executive and the legislature as far as constitution and the rule of law and true democracy is concerned. Now, in as much as Justice Doris Okobi is retired, but he's still a judiciary, as it were. And with what has happened in the judiciary, let's not talk about the raid on one of the Supreme Court judges. You know, it takes guts for her to come out, stand her ground, and still present that report indicting the government, both the state and the federal.
Yes, certainly. It's beyond, it's not a question of whether she's retired or not. It's much more a question of having the will and having the patriotism and even nationalism, to decide to do the right thing. Of course, it's not all on her, but of course she's the chairperson. Yes, and we have had situations. You said something here, and that's quite remarkable, very profound. And that's the fact that we are in an administration that's very repressive administration. Administration which I have said in this forum and in other fora, has had to muscle down the other arms of government, especially the judiciary and the legislature. They couldn't do that in the 8th Assembly, what they're doing with the 9th Assembly. And that's why a lot of things have gone wrong in Nigeria. But they have succeeded largely in emasculating the judiciary. They've succeeded even culminating in the last raid that you mentioned on Justice Mary Odili of the Supreme Court. So for you to have this kind of report, now it's, even if Justice Okobi were retired, she's still, her pension is still paid by Lagos State government. So you would say that the incumbent governor, Sanwo-Olu, that set up the committee, there would have been quite a lot to say, look, I have to be careful, given what has always happened in our polity. But, I read one of the things Sanwo-Olu said, and I'm tempted to believe him, given the outcome or the content of the report. He has said that he had not met her before, which is very possible, yes. Except for those of us who had appeared before her as a judge when she was still sitting, still in office as a judge. And that he never even put a call across to her. And well, why I'm tempted to believe the governor, Sanwo-Olu, is because the indictment of Sanwo-Olu directly, by the report, where the report says that indeed it was the governor that invited the military, who came in, and what happened. It takes a lot of grit, a lot of boldness, a lot of integrity, a lot of patriotism, as I said, and nationalism for you to decide to defy everything. Now, I talked about how repressive this administration is. It's so much so that we have seen, one would have feared that a lot of people are not talking today, not because they do not know what is wrong, not because they do not know what to say, or but because they are afraid. So speaking the truth on their repressive government administration like the one we have today requires a lot of guts, a lot of patriotism. And that is what this panel of has done by their report, in having to go all the whole, to show that indeed the military rogue elements who came in, that's what I call them, in fact, we're responsible for the shooting and killing of unarmed Nigerian youth. In fact, the very night of the incident, I had used massacre. If you go to my Facebook page, I proudly say, I said that repeatedly, I used the word, and I had about 3 or 6 write-up on Facebook, basically, expressing my angst, as an outcome of the shooting of these young men. I called it clearly, it was a massacre. Young men who were seated unarmed, and the flag, the sovereignty, the symbol of the sovereignty and authority of Nigeria, race, a typical soldier would not shoot a person holding his country's flag. That is an act of aggression against that person holding that flag. That flag typifies the sovereignty of Nigeria. So if somebody holds it, says, I am friend, I am not enemy, that's what it means. Not by the rules of engagement, a soldier cannot and should not shoot a person who is waving your country's flag, who is not armed. If you were armed and pretending, and perhaps you could say, you know, maybe some other of them, there are many, some are carrying arms and others are not, and pointing arms at you, you could have some manner of justification. But this won't arm youth. Most of them likely sitting down, singing the national anthem and holding the flag, the green, white, green. And we're sure that, and the panel, as far as I'm concerned, did the right thing in having to state exactly what happened. The frustrations my colleague has mentioned are all there. We read about them in the report. You know, even attempts, even the Lekki what do you call it, management of the, you know, our attempt to withhold, suppress, you know, suppress and withhold evidence from them. They still went out of their way, did everything they could, and they got, you know, live witnesses who testified, and of course, it's really, really commendable. It's only pointing the way forward, how we should as Nigerians be bold, because it is, you see, when people come out and talk against what is wrong in the country, Nigerians should speak up. See, they listen. Those in government listen. I'm of the view that we have a lot of rogue elements in this government, and that's why you can see what happened, you know, on the 20th of October. It was remarkable because it was my wife's birthday, and I was out somewhere with my wife when all of this was going on. We're getting the report, you know. So we had better start talking. They listen. When you talk, when all Nigerians, all of us in unison, are saying no and are expressing their minds against the rogue policies and bad policies and action of government, you know, they will not move further because of the truth. Who are those in government? A very select few, you know, determining the destiny of the rest. And if we allow them, for as long as we're quiet and silent and inactive, they will do just about anything.
So, even though the jury is still out there for the governor, Sanwo-Olu, as far as the white paper is concerned, doesn't the governor require that be commended for the job well done? First of all, for setting the panel and appointing those personalities in the panel, and of course, not meddling, even though there's a good chance he will be indicted in the report, but he didn't meddle. Should he be, you know, commended for that? Even though, as I said, the jury is still out there, you know, for him.
Yes, certainly. I must commend the governor indeed, yes, for doing that. He deserves commendation. Of course, well, if he didn't think, perhaps, when I said that, I believe the governor, when he said he never called, and I say why? Because of the outcome, the content of the report. Well, even if he did, it means that the panelists didn't take into consideration whatever they were told. But howbeit, in the absence of any report by any panelist saying the governor indeed called me or called us and told us what to do, and indeed, in the light of the reports that we have, you know, I must commend the governor for having, you know, the strength of mind to do what he did, you know, because indeed, as soon as this happened, all of these things started coming to light, that indeed, you know, one of the things I think may have actually been taken into consideration by the governor. I'm only trying to pick his brains at the time of setting up the report. I mean, the panel, you know, of investigation. It could well be we're in a country where godfathers actually hold the reins. And if you, Solomon, were my godfather, and you told me to call soldiers because you're the governor of Galaxy Television, and you know, I'm the governor and you're my godfather, all right, and you called, you asked me to, and I called and they came here. I want to show that, look, indeed, yeah, I may have, but of course, it wasn't my will. Allah, we say non est factum, you know. It appeared, I signed there, my signature is there, but it was not my will, you know, because the exercise of my will was absent. I was either compelled to do it or I was deceived to do it, or I was under circumstances that I couldn't say no to when I did it. Well, that could well have been the situation when the governor called, I'm not surmising, when the governor called the soldier, because he was told to call soldiers and he called them. And so when did he have it? He didn't bother how much the panel might find out that he called the soldiers. But of course, the report is now before the committee, which the governor said is setting up of the Attorney General and others to look at, with a view to come up with a white paper to implement. Don't forget, the mandate was investigate, all right? And then
they have investigated.
And recommend, yes, and then compensation. And I saw a wide range of recommendations that have come.
So let's remain in the governor calling the soldiers now.
Yes.
Is that enough to indict the governor? The fact that he called in soldiers, wouldn't be something unusual in that situation, would it? Is that enough to indict the governor?
Well, if you want just a yes or no answer, I think the answer is yes. If indeed he called a soldier, that is a ringing indictment for which he could be prosecuted.
I mean, isn't he supposed to call in soldiers?
No. You see, yesterday night, myself and some other public intellectuals were engaged in a debate on Facebook with regards to this indictment of the governor of Lagos State. And I was telling people that that is the most shocking aspect of the report for me as a person. I have never worked with Sanwo-Olu. I'm not close to him. I've never even met him. But at least I have a few friends who have worked with him and related to him and all that. And all the comment I won't get from these people is that the man is a very compassionate person. He's a very responsible person and a man who really cares about the well-being of people around him and the people of Lagos. So when the report came out and said he was the person that called the soldiers, it was a shocker for me
but that wasn't
as a
really
person.
a shock because they were already in the news. If you follow the panel,
it was in the news, but I never.
How many people have come out to actually point to the government?
I never believed it, but the person is there. Does any law allow Sanwo-Olu or give Sanwo-Olu the power to really invite what you could describe as a civil disobedience? When you look at is it the commander-in-chief? Is it the commander-in-chief?
No,
does any law allows him or gives him the power to really call in the soldier to someone empower the army to quell what you could describe a civil disobedience? And even if you call the army, can the army go out in there without the commander-in-chief putting his approval to it?
No, I'm asking this question because we've been talking about the governors having the power to control their security, in a bid to quell the various insecurity.
Ordinary police, the governor cannot call out the police to go and carry out certain assignments without the concurrence of the commissioner of police, the AIG zone of what, and then the IG of police.
Even though the constitution says he's the chief security officer.
You read to us just this now that the governor of one state is complaining that they are handicapped when it comes to really controlling or managing the security apparatus of their respective estate. For me, I think there is more to this. It could be that maybe Sanwo-Olu got instruction from somewhere or a threat from somewhere and said, look, young man, if you don't handle this thing and all that, I'm prepared to send soldiers to help you quell this civil disobedience and all that. Furthermore, don't forget, even the president has come out and said, look, that uprising, so to say, or that protest in Lagos State embarked upon by the EU was deliberately engineered by certain people to topple his government.
Yes, that's right.
To remove him from power. So if the president has that kind of a mindset, what is the possibility that he was not the one breathing down the neck of Babajide Sanwo-Olu to really calling the soldier to do whatever they may have done? And even if indeed he are calling the soldier, he will require the concurrence of the commander-in-chief before the soldier could go out to do what they have done with those youth. Furthermore, is it also impossible that maybe Sanwo-Olu had panicked and was just out there to protect the interests of the godfather, who is said to have business interests? I mean, with regards to at the toll gate, yes, and all that. These are some of the conjectures and some of the insinuations that you can begin to piece together to really ask. So for me, you journalists, for example, still required to do some investigation with regard to that not issue on why Sanwo-Olu called in the soldier and on what authority did he call in the soldier. Does he have the power under the law to invite the soldier? What role did the commander-in-chief, who has to give a concurrence to Sanwo-Olu, even if he called in the soldier, what role did he play in getting the soldier to the toll gate to start shooting at those innocent youths? So all these things are still areas that we really require to dig into before we really get to the bottom of this issue. Maybe the white paper might be shedding more light if they have the mandate to really be able to do that.
So the question in everyone's mind now is, what next? The report has been submitted. The governor has constituted a committee, to present the white paper. Anticipation is rife, as it were. So what next?
Well, the only right thing to do, and we hope that we'll begin to get it right going forward. This country needs a lot of healing. I have said, and I do not mince words about this, terrible things have been happening in the country, especially under this administration. There's total lawlessness and total absence of security. Nigeria technically or rightly is a fair state, and so that's why what the panelists have done is very commendable, because you see, at the end of the day, if you are president today, you are governor today, you are commissioner today, you are whatever today, you will not be so tomorrow. And if you're a beneficiary today, you will be a victim tomorrow. There are people who are victims of your action today that would in turn, if it's not them, some other people would also take steps that you would be a victim, but only because we're not doing things right. Only because we chose to operate outside the ambit of the law and the rule of law and due process. So no society can make progress going forward that way. And so the wide-reaching recommendations of the panel must be implemented, and we're watching. Some of us who...
the whole world is watching.
Yeah, some of us who are given to talk, who would talk, because I've always said, if I can't do anything more, even if there was nothing else I could do but talk, I will. I'm a Nigerian, full-blooded, all right? And so if at my age and station in life, I cannot speak about the ills in my country for myself and for my children and for my posterity for as long as the earth remains until Jesus comes, then why am I here? So let's ensure that I'm calling on all Nigerians going forward, the way forward. In Lagos State, that all of Nigeria and the international community to ensure that the recommendations of this panel are implemented to the letter, and even more in form of reprehension, in form of how do I put it, justice, redress, for the victims, and to serve as a deterrent, so that tomorrow whoever is in government will know that if I do this, something is going to come out of it. Because today, for instance, we're talking about Sanwo-Olu have been indicted. Yeah, okay, fine, but as soon as he's triable because of this indictment, if he leaves government in what God knows when, if he leaves government, he's triable. He can be put to trial. Maybe that's when he's waiting to say who asked him to call the soldiers. I'm just surmising, but I feel strongly that the man says, after all, I would say who asked me to call the soldiers, because we're talking about blood here, young people, blood on his head and on the head of others, and then for people who, like my colleague has said, those who know him say he's a good-hearted person, so he might really, I heard him say it actually, after how he felt so bad about the killings, how young people were killed. I heard him say it on TV. I watched him say it.
Let's hope he'll put that to action.
Yeah, so going forward, let's ensure that the recommendations.
Honestly speaking, if our antecedent as a nation is anything to go by, I don't see anything coming out of this report. My suspicion is that they will just slip over this report. 2023 campaigns around the corner, And then once the campaign begins and all that, nobody is likely to remember.
That's why we should make them
nobody is likely to remember. In an ideal society, with that report, immediately the white paper comes out and all that. Ordinarily, people like Sanwo-Olu should have just resigned. In a decent society, that is the way it's done. Look at what happened in Britain not too recent ago. A citizen a woman was going somewhere, asked the police for direction. Yes. Rather than give the woman direction, the police lured her into some places and raped her and killed her. Immediately that happened, those who weren't even involved, like the mayor, the commissioner in Metropolitan London and all that, all of them began to throw in the towel. That is how it is done in a very responsible environment and civil environment. But we don't have that kind of a precedent in this part of the country. Look at the Uputa panel that I referred to, what became of it. Look at the Jonathan's confa, what came out of it. Look at the Kayode panel, what came out of it. Some of the judges that were indicted and not at the end of the day were returned to
and still participated in several governments.
Several governments and what happened. So if anything is going to happen to this report and all that, it is the Nigerian civil organized civil society that can put pressure not just on the government in Lagos State, not just on the government at the federal level, but also on the international community to make sure that this report is not swept under the carpet.
So, finally, what happens to people like DJ Switch that have been in hiding? Are they free to come out of hiding? Are they safe? What about after the whole NSAS mayhem? The government did like a commando-style arrest of people that were perceived to be some of the leaders of this NSAS. And some of them, so the lucky ones have been able to
escape and go into exile.
But there's still some people. So what happens to people like
Mr.
that?
Ofem, any of them who is on hiding now, who is in exile, I will not advise them to come back to the country, despite the fact that they have been vindicated. Why do I say this? I'm sorry to use this analogy. Go and check. Most of the student critics of these governments have died in one way or the other. Balara Debe Musa is gone. Dr. Junai Mohammed is gone.
The recent
CBN deputy governor is gone. Omoyele Sowore's younger brother Felix is gone, and so many other people. I'm also told, I've not confirmed that one of the very acidic critics of this government, a journalist who is based in the US, I'm also told that they went to his village and killed his elder brother when he was sitting in the sit rooms and other. Why am I summarizing all these things? You see, all over the world today, government have perfected very skillful, way of really eliminating their political opponent. Look at what Putin, for example, does in Russia. He's developed some chemical substances, agents and all that, which could be thrown into your room, put in your tea, or passing to you.
Russia has always done that.
And then you're eliminated. Besides that, too, I'm sorry to this, and I don't have regret for saying this and all that. If you know what some of our clients tells us that the DSS do to them underground in connivance with the National Union of Road Transport Workers and all that, you will be amazed that some of these people are better stayed abroad, because the pressure they put on you, they put on your business, the harassment they give to you will either give you a heart attack or high blood pressure that will lead to your death without anybody touching you, or even they also organize a road accident to eliminate you. They simulate a road accident to eliminate you. So whoever has been lucky to find himself abroad had better stay there. And those who are underground today, they had better not come up until this government leaves power.
That's a strong statement.
Well, my counsel is, of course, that they stay away, because it's not Uhuru yet.
So even with these reports, giving them a breath of fresh air.
The report notwithstanding, yes, it is true that the evidence has been given already by all of these people. And of course, even if those indicted are going to be tried, you may not have to, there might be need to recall them, all right? But of course, this evidence that they've given and indicted them will be very relevant, all right? But for purpose of criminal trial before a law court, it's a different thing from what you have before a panel, all right? So it's not the end of it yet. Not just, we've talked about the army, the police were also seriously indicted in that report. Don't
Exactly,
forget.
exactly.
Yeah, they didn't
Nigerian Army.
just the army. Yeah, the police were seriously indicted. And for the police, I think, it's my view, still surmising like I did before, that essentially may have been because of the things that happened around Lagos, the burning of police stations, because of prior incidences and skirmishes with the police before the 20th of October. You know, so it was more like a revenge. You know, yes, it was a vendetta, you know, attack on that day on those youths. You know, so police followed suit as soldiers. Don't forget, the police incident came after the soldiers. You know, they did theirs after the soldiers had done the shooting and gone. You know, so we've said what we said to say finally that, you know, because of time, what you're saying on this matter, what the panel has done is commendable. Nigerians all together should not be silent on the outcome of this investigation, and we should do our best to put pressure on this government, and we're calling on the international community
to do the right thing
as well to do the same thing. And for those who give evidence, you know, it's no time, it's not safe yet for them to come out. And of course, for the families of the many who were killed, it's a very good thing to know that at the end of the day, I mean, we are pointing in the direction of justice. Justice has not been served yet. All right, we have just started, you know, the process to serve justice for the massacre of those young people.
Just 1 minute, just 1 minute. The Jadinyoju was attacked in front of the National Human Rights Commission when he was protesting against detention of children. Who attacked him? You saw the kind of people that were taken there. Just recently, when Omoyele Sowore went to witness Nnamdi Kanu's trial, you saw the kind of people that were brought in there in the presence of the police and the vehicle they brought. They removed his cap and then were going to start beating him and all that when some people came to his rescue. Even then in the end, was it not initially peaceful and all that?
In Abuja,
look at the kind of watching that were brought in official vehicles and all that. There is a working relationship now between some Woodlawn and the security agencies in Nigeria to deal ruthlessly with whoever speaks against the government or stands in opposition to the government.
Okay.